So this morning it's the first main talk of this retreat. Yesterday evening we did the Q&A session, and beforehand the first talk which I gave on yesterday afternoon, that was just a general talk following on from the 8 precepts. So hopefully you're managing to keep those 8 precepts to the best of your ability. So what do you do if you break one of those precepts while you're here? 50 strokes of one of the teddy bears. Have some kindness. You know, one thing which I learned being a school teacher, that it's fine, it's welcome to make mistakes. Has anybody here been perfect the last 36 hours? If you have been perfect, then you don't need to be here. You're already enlightened. We expect people to make mistakes. When I was a school teacher, we expected students to make mistakes. And when I had to set my first math exam, I didn't know what to do. So I asked a senior teacher, and the senior teacher said, try and aim for getting the average score in your class at 70%. Because 70% is a good score. And if you get 70% in the exam, it means, yes, you can do maths, but nevertheless, there's some things where you're weak on. And so it encourages the students, but where they make mistakes, for me, the teacher, that would be the most important, to find out what they did not understand, so then address the next lessons on those weaknesses to get you to be better meditators. So it's okay to make mistakes, and don't hide them, but to share them with your teacher. And that means you can keep on growing. A good example of that, please excuse me, but they took me on a walk just after breakfast, and they showed me the big field they have over there. And I was asking, what are you doing there? Are you playing games and sports? I said, yes. And is the goal to be a winner or a loser? At sports, if you're a Buddhist, please be a loser. Because winning is not compassionate. Think of all the other people who aren't as advanced as you in meditation, and they have to go home and say they lost. So I always say, if you have a soccer team, make sure you don't get attached to the ball. When the other team wants it, let go. And if their team cannot score a goal, you score a goal for them, an own goal. Yes, that's being compassionate, being kind. So being a loser, I'm not quite sure in your life, but you know, the last time I played a competitive soccer team I was still in university. And it was only a college game, not sort of a high class for the university. And only 9 of their team turned up. 11 of our team turned up. And at half time, it was so one-sided. It was 6 or 7-0 up. And that's not what I wanted to play soccer for. I wanted to have exercise and fun, not just to win at all costs. So at half time, I asked the captain of my side, is it okay if I play for the other side? And the second half, I was serious. And he started swearing at me. No, you can't do that. And that was the last game of soccer I ever played. I fed up, that's not what I wanted to play soccer for. Not always to win at all costs, but to have a good match. And if I can make it a more even match and more fun by joining the other side, then I would. So this is something else. And as you say, you dance to a different tune as a Buddhist. But anyway, that was just warming you up to actually before the talk. I wanted to be a bit more just careful in the topics of my talk in the morning time, because many of you don't need to just learn stories, but to learn about things like how to meditate. And one of the topics I was going to talk about this morning was about mindfulness. You're supposed to have a mindful breakfast, a mindful lunch. I saw that in the program. Do you have to do everything mindfully? What if you don't have any mindfulness? Then what? Have you got to stroke the teddy bear 50 times again? But first of all, I mean, what is mindfulness? And what is its purpose? And how is it established? Even little things, just like I'm sure that many of you have heard Satipatthana Sutta before. What is it? You have the words, but does that really mean 4 foundations of mindfulness? And how do you actually do it? What is it? And so many people have so many different definitions of what mindfulness is. But in the 4 Satipatthanas, if you look at the instructions, there's one of the first books which I took out of the library at the Cambridge University Buddhist Society. It was a translation of the Satipatthana Sutta by 2 Sinhalese monks. When I read the introduction, I almost burst out laughing, because these 2 monks said that they had read, and it was true, it was a good translation. The Buddha said that if you practice, according to the correct instructions, the 4 Satipatthanas, then within 7 days you can become a non-returner. And these 2 monks said they were so inspired of reading that, they got permission to travel to Sri Lanka, to travel to Burma, and to do the Satipatthana there. They did, I think, a 9-day retreat. So you got the 7 days, but the first day, actually to get settled in, the last day, to celebrate, your non-returning attainment. But it didn't work for them. So they did a 2nd retreat. Still it didn't work. So then they said, well, we decided to translate the sutta into English. We can't do it, but at least we can translate it so other people can. That was one of the first books which I read as a student. And I kind of wondered why. If the Buddha said that, surely the Buddha would not sort of exaggerate. The Buddha was not a salesman, saying you buy this food and then you'll be healthy forever after. There must be something wrong with the understanding of that Satipatthana Sutta. And of course, later on, I always kept that in the back of my mind. What is the correct way of practicing, say, the 4 Satipatthanas? Those 2 monks must have got it wrong. If they did it right, it has to work. That's what the Buddha said. What were they doing wrong? It took me many years later, when I started learning Pali. I did that because there were so few monks under Ajahn who knew Pali. And we had rules, like the Vinaya, and some of those rules, our understanding was very, very meager, and it caused a lot of trouble. We didn't know what actually the rules were that we were to practice. So when I started learning Pali, it wasn't that hard. I'd learned Latin at school, and Latin and Pali are very similar in their structure. So I soon managed to learn Pali and get a good vocabulary. And then I started reading these suttas in Pali instead of English or any other translation. It was the closest I could get to the original words of the Buddha. When I started reading them, there's so many things that came straight out at me, such as the Satipatthana Sutta. It was an important sutta, and it began with every one of those four Satipatthana. They said the preliminaries. One of those preliminaries in Pali was Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanasan, which is usually translated into English as having abandoned grief and covetousness for the world. Have you read that? What does it mean? Grief for the world? You may have grief for your old mother who passed away. Covetousness for the world? Do you really covet the world? Are you the Malaysian version of Donald Trump? The whole thing never really, never understood it. Those translations which we relied on for decades, most of them were made by a gentleman called Professor Rhys Davids. He was the one who managed to invent the word mindfulness for sati, and that was excellent. But Satipatthana Sutta, grief and covetousness for the world, what on earth does that mean? And of course, it's not a very accurate translation at all. The Pali words, Loke Abhijja and Domanasan, you came across those many, many, many times, especially when reading the Anguttara Nikaya. That's the fourth set of suttas. And there you found that those words, Loke Abhijja and sometimes Domanasan, were used as synonyms for the first two of the five hindrances, especially Loke Abhijja. That's instead of like Kamachanda, they used Loke Abhijja. And Domanasa, two suttas. I found there were synonyms for Vyapada, ill will. Vinaya means having lessened them, having subdued them, have made them very small. And it means that having lessened those first two hindrances. And later on, in sort of kind of interesting research, I looked at the two commentaries to the Satipatthana Sutta. The main Satipatthana is in the Digha Nikaya and the Majjhima Nikaya, and both suttas have their commentaries. Just how monks a long time ago decided that what those words actually meant. And they said that those two words, Loke Abhijja and Domanasa, meant the first two of the five hindrances. And he said that in Pali, it's the idiom when you say the first two of a well-known group, the other members of that group are meant to be included. So the two commentaries there said, in the Satipatthana, the preliminary duties, the preparation, is having lessened the five hindrances. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That made so much sense. If you're going to be mindful of these four objects or foundations of mindfulness, your mindfulness has to be clear, powerful. In other words, the influence of the five hindrances has to be reduced immensely. That is the job of the first factors of the Eightfold Path, the right view, and also the right intentions. I prefer to call it right motivation, where you're coming from. This is not a sutta class. This is just what mindfulness is, according to my understanding, quoting the words of the Buddha. And second factor of the Eightfold Path right motivation, where you're coming from. Remember, that has a right view, first of all. Right view, one of those paths of right view, is that this practice is not to be a winner. As I mentioned earlier on the simile of playing soccer in a field up there. It's actually learning how to let go of things, how to renounce. It's one of the reasons why they call a man or a woman who shaves their hair to become a bhikkhuni or a bhikkhu, they call them renunciant. You're not gaining something from this. You're letting go of things. I never think that being a monastic is a comfortable life. I always thought that if I work hard as a monastic, the last years of your life you can have an easy life. I've now had my 73rd birthday. Can I retire? Mate, no, not fair. So you still have to work. And the older you are, the harder you have to work, the more you have to teach. Of course, I'm happy to do that. But you'd think that, you've done enough work already. Surely you can have an easy life. But no, you do this out of renunciation. Not how much you can get, but how much you can give. It's a beautiful understanding of what meditation is. Ajahn Chah used to say this so regularly, so often. He said, you meditate in order not to gain things, but to lose things. So anyone who's on this retreat, you have a goal to attain jhana. You're going on the wrong path. You're not coming here to get things. You're coming here to lose things. The more you lose, the closer you are to things like jhana. It's renunciation. Second factor of the Eightfold Path, samasankappa. First sankappa is nekama sankappa. Nekama is a Pali word for renunciation. Giving up, letting go, losing things, not gaining things. The second factor of right motivation is kindness. That was such a revelation to see that in the Pali, that I always wanted to know where kindness, compassion, metta was in the Eightfold Path. I knew it was important, but is there you got right mindfulness, you got right speech, right action, right livelihood. How about right kindness? And it's there hidden in the second factor of the Eightfold Path. And the next of the second factor of the Eightfold Path is ahimsaka sankappa. That means gentleness. That's one of the reasons why, being a teacher and going behind each one of you with a Zen stick and hitting you, that's not Buddhist. Being cruel, being fierce, being violent, that doesn't make any sense to me about what Buddhism really is. Nor does it make any sense to force you to sit cross-legged while you're in great pain. It doesn't make any sense at all for having to sit down while I'm comfortable up here, giving Q&A. But if you aren't feeling well, for goodness sake, go and sit against the wall, get a nice chair, get an armchair even, and sit in it. To be comfortable. Because if you're comfortable, you're following the very first teachings of the Buddha. What was the first teaching of the Buddha? Oh, yeah, good, thank you. It's kind of great that you've learned, but sometimes it's not fun. Because many times when I ask that question to people who don't know me, they say, oh, the Dhammacakka Sutta. No, that was kind of the second teaching. The first teaching was the middle way. The middle way, avoiding the extremes of Attakilamatadu yoga. And what that literally means is any practices which tire and exhaust your body, especially the idea of tiredness, kilamata. That's another K. Because when you meditate, do you get tired or do you get energized? If you get tired and exhausted, it's the wrong way. It should give you like energy. And then sometimes, you get huge amounts of energy through the practice of the Eightfold Path. Even if you're just doing things like serving others at this retreat. And many of you don't get much time to actually meditate because you're helping doing the cooking or the cleaning and helping do all sorts of other things for all sorts of people. Have you ever noticed that gives you a lot of inspiration? Because it's my 50th year, I just completed 50 years as a monk. Many people have been reminding me of all the stuff which I've been doing over those 50 years. Show me photos of it. And sometimes it inspires me. I get energized. Wow, look at that. It's really going well. Even, please excuse me, those at Nalanda, because when I usually come to KL, I usually go to the BGF. How well have you done over all those years? You got this beautiful place now over in our Damansara. And it's so comfortable for me being a monk there. Go in that room, I know that room really well. The bed recognizes me and I always have a good sleep on it. And I remember how you started. It's a really great achievements. And look at this place, Nalanda. It's a beautiful retreat center. So it's not as if you've done a job or a duty. What you've done is beyond the call of duty, making this place available for people to meditate deeply. Wow. This sort of practice generates energy. But please make sure you remember, if you're tired, a little bit depressed or disappointed, please remember all the services which you've done over the years. Even just going over to India to see the holy places. Remember them and indulge in them. So you get really such amazing energy and your back straightens up and you feel, wow, you've actually done that, survived it, and you made Buddhism a better vehicle for many people in this world. Wow. That's where you get energy. So we avoid things which weaken our energy. And also we don't indulge in the sensory pleasures. Kama Sukha Ali Yoga. That is of the five senses. And if anybody hasn't heard me say this before, you can see it in books. This is especially from one of the suttas in the Digha Nikaya, Pasadika Sutta. When the Buddha was instructing one of his monks and saying to this monk, the monk actually asked the Buddha, what if some of the other traditions that they say, monks, do you enjoy pleasure as a monk or you don't enjoy pleasure as a monk? And then you should answer, what type of pleasure are you referring to? If it's the pleasure of the five senses, the answer is no. The sixth sense, yes. The sixth sense of the mind is inspiration. It's, of course, the meditation, the stillness, the peace, the bliss which comes up through meditation. And then if they ask, well, yes, so you're indulging in the pleasures of the mind, the pleasures of meditation, so what? What does that get you? And the Buddha said, please tell everybody that anyone who indulges in the pleasures of the meditations, there is only 4 possibilities for you. This is what will happen to you if you indulge in the pleasures of meditation. First stage of enlightenment, second stage of enlightenment, third stage of enlightenment, or full enlightenment. There's not a 5th possibility. And when you read that and you contemplate it, that's the word of the Buddha. And you cannot sort of deny that. Wow. So please, if you have nice meditation, indulge in it. Get into it. And that's what it leads to. That's what we're supposed to be here for. So anyway, when you see these teachings as the Buddha taught, wow. So, that's why I teach these jhanas for you. Not every one of you will get them on this retreat. I'll be very happy if even just one of you does. But once you plant the seed and you realize that's how the Buddha taught, you can't ignore it. It's like conditioning you, brainwashing you. The seed's already been put in there and you can check it out and it's real. And you notice the people who do experience these deep states of meditation, who are they? A lot of times I cannot predict it. Even though I've been teaching this for such a long time, and see all the people who come on these retreats, I can say, oh, he's likely. Or no, she, no way. I have all these wonderful stories. There's one of those stories, I keep on repeating it, but it's true. On one of the meditation retreats which I taught at Jhana Grove, I was just hanging around by the reception area in our retreat centre in Jhana Grove. And this guy came in, I'd never seen him before, and he was kind of tall, he's dressed in Australian national dress. A dirty singlet, shorts, and a pair of thongs, with tattoos all over him. And as soon as I saw him, of course I made a big mistake. You should never judge a person just by how they look. I said, I think so, you're in the wrong place. The prison farm is just a few kilometres up the road. I make mistakes, and I don't mind admitting that they're fun to admit. And he said, I'd never seen you before. And he really did not look like a meditator, whatever a meditator looks like. He said, no, I'm registered on a retreat. And I checked, his name was there. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologise. So he came on the 9-day retreat. And of course, of all the meditators on that retreat, teaching me a very wonderful lesson, that he came up to me one day in interviews and started describing on how his meditation was going. And I never say this easily. I said, that was a jhana, a real one. I was actually more surprised than he was. I never thought that someone who looked like that. I was just biased. I never thought they could actually get the jhana that easily. And if you ever want a jhana confirmed, if you really want it confirmed, don't come to me. This gentleman, Lee Brasington, he was writing this book upon samadhi, and he actually listed, the people, who can confirm you've got a jhana or confirm you haven't. He said the strictest one of all, number 2 in the list, was Parok Sayadaw. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's very, very strict. But even tougher than Parok Sayadaw was this monk called Ajahn Brahm. If he says you've got a jhana, it really has to be one. He was the toughest of all. But anyway, when you do see somebody have one, oh wow, that just really inspires me. And he got one. And the last person I expected. And so since that day, when I look at all the people here, I don't know which one of you can kind of press that letting go button, disappear, and just allow these beautiful states of mind to develop. So, why do I keep emphasizing things like jhanas? It's not only the eighth fact of the Eightfold Path, but also in other sutras like Nalakapala Sutta, the Buddha said the only way to overcome these five hindrances for a long time is actually to emerge from one of these deep meditations. Once a deep meditation, you've exited from it, then you have no hindrances for a long time. And also the other things which are missing is these two qualities they're called tandi and arati. Tandi is like weariness. You know, when you get to our age, Victor, like you reminded me I'm 1 year older than you, but that's not our age. You do get weary sometimes. You haven't got the sense of energy you had as a young man. But when you get into this deep meditation, that weariness vanishes. It's weird, but when you come out of these deep meditations, sometimes, you know, even as a 70-year-old, you get up and you think, wow, I can race in the Olympic Games. 100 meters, no worries. You really got the energy inside of you. And the other one is arati, it's like discontent. You can't get discontent. I'll tell you this, I hope you forget. If ever you come up to me and ask how your meditation was, sometimes when people come up and they think they've had a deep meditation, they come up and they ask me, said, "Was this a deep meditation?" And I say, I'm sorry, but Malaysian women cannot get jhana. I wait for your response. They say, "What? Ajahn Brahm, I expected something much better from you. Just because you're born in this country, you're a woman, that doesn't matter, does it?" And if you get angry like that, I think, okay, that was not a jhana. But if you go, okay, fair enough, then I say it probably was. Because when you come out of a deep meditation, you can't get upset. No way. That sort of attitude inside of you has disappeared for that while. There's no arati, no discontent. Okay, fair enough. These are temporary things, but this is what happens. This means that your mindfulness is now really pure. So what are those five hindrances? And the first one is just basically wanting something. You don't want anything in the whole world. You're at peace. So all the energy just goes into knowing in this moment. You don't care what's happening next or what's happened in the past. No ill will, so the past is not a thing in your mind anymore. No sloth and torpor. You're full energy. You really are clear. And you've got no restlessness. You're not trying to get anywhere, you're just enjoying being here. And the last of those hindrances, doubt. I'll say a few more about that in a moment, because that was one of the hindrances which is really hard to really describe. But anyway, I'll say what it is in a moment. Those first four hindrances, imagine what it must be like when they're gone. For a few hours or a few days. You've got huge amounts of energy. It's hard to sleep at night. You don't want to sleep. You're fine. And you can't get upset or angry. My definition of mindfulness is that it's not just aware. It's aware in this moment. The past and the future have disappeared from you. In other words, They don't grab you. You're not concerned about what's going to happen in the future. As I mentioned many times, now is the time your future is being made. Right now. If you really are concerned about your future, then you'll be much more in this present moment, where it's actually where you can do something about your future. Thinking about the future, of being afraid about it or hoping for it, it doesn't make any sense. And the past. You can't change the past, it's gone. Have you ever noticed what you think happened is not reliable? How many times have you had arguments with people you love and care for about what you did in the past, or what he did or she did? You can't be sure about the past. The way the memory works, I always was fascinated about the memory. Please excuse me about the racist tones of this, but when I was a kid, we used to play this game as a student called Chinese Whispers. It's got nothing to do with China, so please, I apologise. You can call it Malaysian Whispers if you want, or Aussie Whispers. You get a whole line of kids, and you whisper something to the first kid, and that kid whispers something to the second kid, who whispers it to the third, who whispers it to the fourth. When it gets to the last kid, maybe 20 kids, the message is totally different. And that's not just a game. That's showing you how memory works. You don't remember what happened last year. You remember the last time you remembered it. It's a whole game of Chinese whispers. And that was well known in the military. Because in the military, this actually happened during the First World War. The general gave the order to the colonel, send reinforcements, we're going to advance. That was given to the colonel gave it to the major gave it to the lieutenant gave it to the captain gave it to the sergeant. By the time it got to the front line, the message had become, this is the old English money, send 3 and 4 pence. We're going to a dance. Yeah. And that's how our memory works. So we cannot trust that. And so, in the end, the only thing we can really trust as being a source of truth is this moment. So to be mindful, we're gone away from the past and future. We're just aware of what's happening right now. And to be fully aware of what's happening right now, we have to be silent. Let the thinking process fade away. And I say this simile every time, but I cannot get a better simile. And that was the time Lao Tzu had a little monastery somewhere in mainland China. And it was his custom to go for a walk every evening. And he would always allow one of his students to accompany him. But they had a very important golden rule. If you went on a walk with the teacher, you were not allowed to talk. You couldn't say anything. And so they were walking up in the mountains. They came to a ridge in the mountain. On the other side of the ridge, there was a beautiful sunset. Really extraordinarily beautiful, with all the golds and the crimsons and oranges spread around the horizon like they were painted by some master artist. And a young student forgot the rule and blurted out, "Wow, what a beautiful sunset." And what did the teacher say? "You couldn't say anything. He can't break his own rule. He just turned around and walked back to the monastery. When he got back to the monastery, he could talk again. Even Lao Tzu said that student is no longer allowed to go on a walk with me ever again. Really strict. And the other student said, "Oh, come on, give him a break. He was only a young student. Anyway, what's wrong with saying, 'Oh, what a beautiful sunset'?" And that's when the teacher gave this incredible, meaningful explanation. And when I heard this, it really went right inside of me. He said, when my student said, "What a beautiful sunset," he was not watching the sunset anymore. He was just watching the words. He wasn't watching the sunset, he was watching the words. Wow. That tells you the importance of silence. Every time you try and think of the Dhamma, it's not the Dhamma anymore, it's the words. That's why if you want to experience the sunset, be silent. And you can see so much more of it. So anyway, that became my definition of mindfulness. In this moment, and silent. You're experiencing things, you're not giving your commentary about it. And when this starts to happen on a meditation retreat, this is where you get the fun things starting to happen. One of those fun things which I remember when they first started to come up, my mindfulness was getting stronger and stronger. And this was in the main hall in Wat Ba Nana Chat, which I am kind of disappointed that they have removed that hall. They've moved the hall round to the back of the monastery. But I remember that floor of that hall. It was a concrete floor, and the concrete had been laid by the villagers. So it was not smooth. And I was there when they were building it. To try and smooth it the best they possibly could, they would use spit. They spit on it, then over the trowel, try and smooth it. These were not professional grano workers, they were the villagers. But it's more than good enough. Now, when I explain how it was built, you can possibly understand just how it looked. During the Wasa period, the rains retreat period, when the monsoons came, we do a lot of walking meditation inside that hall. I remember once doing the walking meditation inside the main hall, the old hall, in Bungwai, Wat Banana Chat. And I was, look, my gaze was like 2 meters in front of me, or body length in front of me, not looking to the left, not looking to the right, and keeping my attention on just the movement of my feet. But I could also see what I was looking at, this whole piece of concrete laid by the villagers. My mindfulness started to really get strong, and I had to stop walking. Because what I saw in front of me was incredibly beautiful. I'd never seen a piece of concrete like that before in my life. It had different shades of grey, and they all blended in so beautifully together. And it had contours. And the more I looked, the more I could see, and the more I could appreciate that this was a piece of concrete wasted in a meditation hall. I really thought, and I should ask the head monk at the time, can we please cut it out? I want to send it to the Tate Gallery in London. It was actually, that beautiful. I wasn't mad. It was gorgeous. You could just look at it and wow, 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 wow. That's what happens when you get mindful. You don't just see a lot, you see just how beautiful it is. The joy, the piti sukha starts to come up. And these are things which are just ordinary, you thought. Okay, can I please tell a growth story? I think many of you know what's coming. Even in Jhana Grove, this retreat centre which I built. One day, of course, mindfulness is going really good. I enjoy going to retreats with you because I also get good meditation as well. And I also, one thing which I've noticed, when one person gets a good meditation, a lot of other people get good meditation too. It's almost like I pull you along. You kind of resonate. Anyway, this particular time, really lovely meditation. I had to get up from my meditation cushion because I needed to go to the toilets. Even monks have to go to toilets as well. So I went into one of the toilets, in just a general male toilet room, and to do a number 2. You know what number 2 is? Okay, good. I made a mistake. Before flushing, I decided to have a look. Wow. I even said that. Good stop. That was one of the most beautiful things that have ever come out of my backside in my life. And I'm not exaggerating. Just the shape of it. It wasn't just something which had just come out as higgledy-piggledy. This was like a sculpture, done by Rodin or something. And the different colours of brown, how they interacted. Honestly, it was a work of art. And then I couldn't help but admire the fragrance as well. When you get high-class people come to the monastery, some of them, they come and they're really dressed up with lots of perfume and nice clothes. And the perfume coming from that contents of the toilet bowl was far more attractive than anything you get from the perfume shop. It was actually real, it was earthy and full, it wasn't fake, it wasn't sort of concocted, this was real. Oh, wow. And I'm shortening the experience. It lasts about 5 or 10 minutes. Before my business, looking at that in the toilet bowl, and just wow, it's the most amazing, most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And then, of course, other people waiting to go into the loo. I couldn't stay there forever, even though I did think of actually picking it out so I can preserve. You've got to share it with others. When you see something beautiful, you don't want to keep it for yourself. But, yeah, sharing. But I thought, no, I can't do that. So I reckon it was only because of all that training of being a monk, of letting things go. It was tough. I put my finger on the button on the top of the, what's it called? To flush it. I couldn't do it. I can give up so many things in life, but one of those beautiful things which will never come out of me. That was tough. Many times I tried, till eventually, okay, you did it. And the most beautiful piece of SHIT I'd ever seen went out of my life forever. I really should have taken a photograph first. But you know that one of the important things about that is one of my disciples, he works at CERN, the atom smasher between France and Switzerland. And he wrote me a lovely letter and said, thank you for that story. Because I always wondered what beauty was. Is actually beauty in the thing you're watching? Obviously not. Is it in the eye of the beholder? No. Beauty lies in the stillness of the mind. The more still and peaceful you are, the more you can see beauty in anything. And that's an important point. Once you have that type of mindfulness in this present moment, you stop all of the chatter inside. If you were chattering, you would not allow yourself to even contemplate that a piece of feces in the bottom of a toilet bowl could be beautiful. You can't think that. It goes against what you've been taught. You can only see it. And when you do, you also know the source of this piti sukha, this joy, this bliss which comes up in meditation. And once that starts to come up, I've consistently for the last I don't know how many years called that the pivot point of meditation. That's where the meditation turns. You don't meditate because you think you're going to get something. You can't stop meditating. It's that gorgeous, that most beautiful. You're having the time of your life. Plural. Even, I remember one of these executives who came from one of my retreats from Sydney. She said she had to beg and grovel from her boss to get the time off. But she sent me this email once she returned to Sydney. She sent me this email saying, on the Monday morning when I turned up for work, my boss took one look at me and said, I do not know what drug Ajahn Brahm is giving you in Perth. I don't care, just bring me back some next time. You could see just how much happiness and joy and rest and power was in one of his senior executives. It really does make you empowered and starting to get blissed out. That is what is supposed to happen in meditation. That's what makes it so easy to do something like just watching the breath. The breath becomes beautiful. The most delightful, delicious breath you've ever breathed in your whole life. You go deeper inside and you are blissing out. Do you remember just all of those contemplative sages, which we have in history? They're always supposed to be so happy, so joyful, having nothing in the whole world. What does that mean? Spend a couple of hours just watching the breath, just blissing out, enjoying yourself to the max. Or that Vietnamese monk, 8 days. Didn't he get bored? No way. Enjoying every moment. Literally. This is what happens when mindfulness gets incredibly strong. And so you can use it for insight. I am now going to do an insight exercise for you. What's this I'm holding up? That's all. Do you know the way we've been taught at school? You give it a name, correct, they can go on to something else. In insight meditation, you don't finish with it. What else is there? What else can you see? What else? What else? What else? What else? The longer you look, the more you see. If you want to see deeply into something, you have to stay with it for a long time. Into the four satipatthanas. Body or stuff. Vedana, I usually prefer calling experience. What is experience? Do you know what it is? Chitta, the mind. How many of you know what a mind is? In deep meditation, you've got the mind right in front of you. And then you can explore it. I prefer explore it rather than contemplate it. Contemplate it is too much thinking. All you're doing when you contemplate, when you think about things, you repeat what other people told you that it was. It's not really exploring it, seeing it for yourself. And the Dhamma, what is Dhamma? For Satipatthana, after a while you see it in front of you. You start to see things that no one has ever taught you before. No one ever taught me the piece of feces could be so beautiful. That's kind of shocking. That's why, I intended to meditators, otherwise they'd lock me up in a cell or somewhere. Crazy monk. But after a while you stop giving things names. And just my perception a few moments ago, this is really beautiful. It's only like a metal, but it looked like silver glowing in the light of the little lights in there. You can get so much beauty in this world, and it's always there. It's just we're too busy to actually see anything. And this is where your meditation retreat really does become much, much, much better than Club Med. Club Med, you have to pay for it, you get exhausted. It's kind of manufactured. This is just there for you. Every leaf which you see on a tree, it's not just a leaf. This is one of the poets which I admired when I was a student. Well, not William Yeats, I'll remember his name in a moment. But the part of the poem was to see a world in a grain of sand, see a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. What was his name again? Blake, yes, Blake. Thank you. William Blake. When I first read that poem, I didn't understand what it meant. I don't know why he could say such amazing things. But when you meditate, you can understand exactly what it means. Like to see a world in a grain of sand. A small thing, so common, you pick it up and look at it and allow your mind to explore it. And it's huge. All of the detail in it, all the beauty in it, all the different shapes in it. Just a small grain of sand. Now you go into wildflowers, tiny things. And you look at it, it's more beautiful than anything you've ever seen before. See a heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand. Things which are boundless. And see eternity in an hour, which is the length of time I've been talking. So many of the things time for me to shut up like an eternity. But that's what mindfulness does for you. Mindfulness is not some sort of hard part of the human being. It opens up whole worlds of joy and peace and insight, things you've never seen before. And to emphasize it, what's this got to do with the real world? How many Nobel laureates have there been in Malaysia? Shame on you. One of the Nobel laureates over in Cambridge when I was there. Sorry? Yeah, when I was there. This Nobel laureate, he was the first Welsh physicist to get a Nobel Prize. And he got his Nobel Prize, for those of you who know quantum tunneling, he figured that out, how it works. And no one believed him for years. But about 5 or 6 years, finally someone developed an experiment to prove it or disprove it. And it proved it, he was right. And the reason why I say that, He got his big breakthrough when he came out of meditation. He was doing the TM meditation, but I don't care what brand it is, as long as it's meditation. You could see deeper than anyone had ever seen before. He got a Nobel for it. Come on, get into deep meditations and get a Nobel Prize from Lacey. My challenge for you. That's how it works. You see what other people haven't seen, you explore more deeply. And then the answers come up to you. This is powerful stuff. It's innovative. You know, when I did go over to the United States the last time, went over to California, and there's enough people who know the power of meditation that I got invited into Google headquarters, so I could go in there and give a talk and go and see their meditation room. Even the Google headquarters, they have a meditation room there. And any member of the staff can go in there whenever they want to do some meditation. Why? Because they get great breakthroughs there. And the same with Facebook. When in their place as well, they also got a meditation room. I let people know, you know the address of Facebook in Mountain View? It's number 1, Hacker Drive. That's true. Of course, they know they own the place, so they named the street Hacker Drive, and they are number 1, Hacker Drive, Facebook. Anyway, so this is actually how you get innovation, how you get joy. If you're an artist, how you can create things which no one has ever created before. You're innovating. You're going deeper. And you're getting more understanding of how things work. That's the job of mindfulness. It gives rise to insight into places you never thought insight could go to. Thank you for listening. That's the infinity talk for 1 hour. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent, great. So if there are any questions this evening, I will try my best this evening to answer the questions quickly. But you know, some of the questions are so rich, you know, that I feel like I'm not giving you a fair response if I can't answer it deeply. But I'll try and answer as many as I can. And I think I'd heard we're not going to have interviews this morning. Only 2 participants. My goodness, how come you don't want to ask questions?
We choose another day.
I'll choose another day, okay. Very good. You know what the Buddha said about asking questions? This is one of the suttas. This gentleman came and asked the Buddha a question. I think it was something like, how come some people, they don't even need to work hard and they can make money and live really comfortable? Others of you work really, 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 really hard and you still don't even have enough to pay the bills and put some aside for a rainy day. The Buddha said it's because of your previous karma, previous lives. You didn't do enough good karma. And then it's such a good answer, the man was impressed and asked another question. He said, why is it that some, say, women in this world, doesn't matter how much they spend on spas and on facelifts and whatever, they're still not beautiful. While other women, when they're born, they're just gorgeous to look at. Now, when I said this, you noticed I was looking at the floor. Because when I did this, one time I did this in Singapore, you know what Singapore people are like? When I said that some people it's ugly, it's a waste of money tending to faceless or whatever, it doesn't work. I just happened to be looking at one woman when I was saying that, and she really complained. Why did you mention the word ugly, Ajahn Brahm, when you were looking at me? And it's also a problem if I say beautiful and I'm looking at somebody. You can't win as a mum. But anyway, he gave a good answer. But then the next question was the best. Why is it that some people are intelligent? Now, some of your kids or grandkids, even when you give them extra tuition, even though you send them to classes overseas where they've got the best teachers in the world, they're stupid. And they can't get to university. Why? And the Buddha replied, the cause for stupidity in your next life is not asking questions in this life. And that's true, that's what the Buddha said. It makes a lot of sense. If you're inquisitive, you want to find out answers, of course. That makes you intelligent. I think the question box is going to be full tonight. Okay. But I wish you a very pleasant morning. The lunch, what time do you have your lunch? That's right, we have at the same time, okay. So please enjoy, don't push yourself too hard. Meditate outside if you wish, it's beautiful out there. When I went for a walk this morning, it must be warming up a bit now, though. Yeah, okay. But please, just one good meditation for the whole retreat is all you need. It's not the amount of time you meditate, it's the kind of the depth of it. So see how you go. Don't push yourself too hard. Use wisdom power, not willpower. Okay.